This episode of Outside Insights is brought to you by Placers, a values-led staffing partner helping businesses and individuals reach their highest potential. Build a flexible workforce or take the next step in your career at myplacers.com. So welcome to Outside Insights. I'm Chris Burkhard, and today I'm sitting down with Arnie Malham, multiple-time entrepreneur, accomplished speaker, hard-to-believe best-selling author. Title of the book is Worth Doing Wrong, The Quest That Builds a Culture That Rocks. Arnie, I can't believe it's been 5 years. Welcome back to the Outside Insights show.
You know, it's hard for me to believe as I've done multiple talks throughout the country, do a lot of consulting. How this topic is fluid, because how we deal with our business culture is how we deal with our business, and business is always changing. And so it's a constant flow of information as companies try to get better and better and better at what they do.
So Arnie, that's interesting. I kept coming back to the Drucker quote when I was thinking about this dialogue, you know, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Just to kind of warm us up, as I was thinking about this, I know sometimes I'm known to, I do public speaking, I'll talk about certain topics, and sometimes I get a little tired of those topics, right? You know,
Yeah.
You've now been the culture by design guy, culture matters guy for a long time. How do you feel the marketplace has changed relative to this culture message? And then just take that anywhere you'd like. We obviously talk about the lessons you've learned, both in running companies and in talking about this topic for a long period of time.
Well, here's, as a speaker talking to audiences, the audience continues to change, because every year a lot of people raise their hand and say, I'm going to run my own business, right? I'm
Yes.
leading a group of people, or they get promoted into a position of leadership. And so there's a constant flow of people that were just like me when I first had a leadership opportunity. It's like, I'm going to be a great leader, right? I'm going to be the leader I've always wanted to have in my life. And then life comes at you, right? The Klingons are off the bow, and there's problems with Susie, and Billy's not coming into work. And we start building up this sort of intolerance to the people we're trying to lead, as opposed to learning how to lead those people. And so it's a constant, I constantly talk to people who are just being put in a position of leadership, and it's their first opportunity to do that. Their intentions are good, but their insight is not yet developed. Now, for those that have been leading a great culture and doing great things in culture, we've all learned that it's not about having a static good culture. It's about having an evolving good culture. As our followers change, we have to change, right? We have to come up with new ways to excite them about the vision, about giving them a purpose, or not giving them a purpose, but offering up a purpose that they can follow, and continuing to be the leader our dog wants us to be, as opposed to the leader that sometimes we fall into, right? We get mad about things as opposed to figuring out a way out of them. And so that's how I keep it fresh. Is I know there's a lot of new people coming in, and I know those of us that have been leading good cultures for a long time are always looking for fresh information.
I don't know if this resonates for you, but I've always said, just kind of depending on the time of where I was in running my business or helping someone, is, you know, I was like the perfect leader for a 10-person company. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. I changed, the market changed. And then I was 17 people. And then all of a sudden, it didn't work so well, both for me as a leader and the way I ran my culture. And
Right.
so it's just supporting where you're going with that.
Yeah, things are always changing, right? We're shrinking, we're growing, we have supply line problems, we have people problems, and sometimes we lose people to no fault of anyone's, right? Family happens, moving happens, life happens to people, and we have to continue to evolve. But I know this, we measured a lot of our success through tenure. If we could keep our people in their seats and they became more knowledgeable, more trained, more enthusiastic about our purpose and our vision, then we had a much better chance of winning than if it was all the opposite of that.
So I really like when you say that. about tenure, and I never thought of it that way. I'm curious, over the years, have you been challenged on that premise?
Yeah,
And
because the people say, well, if they're there too long, maybe they're not there. Maybe they got them there won't get them there, right? Won't get them to
yes,
the next place. They're not growing fast enough, and so that's that. Look, leadership's hard, right? It's if we've got to get people where they need to be, and it's our job to train them, help them train up into that position, or move them into a position that they can be better suited. If you've got someone that's been in a position too long and they're not up for the job, guess what? It's your fault. You're the leader. You let them get there. You didn't give them the training they need. You didn't give them the leadership they need. So it's you, instead of getting there and figuring out how to do it, watch it on the way. Like help people get to where the puck is going and not where the puck is. And so if we used to have a thing at our call center where instead of evaluating our intake specialist every quarter to see if they'd get a 3 or 10% raise, we just said every quarter on the quarter, they're going to get another 25 cents an hour. This was long enough to go to where when that meant something every quarter as long as they work here. And my manager would say, well, I don't, they're not good enough to get another 25 cents an hour. And
well,
my response is,
go
yeah,
make them better.
make them better
Yes,
or let them go. But those are the only two options. Like
love them
you,
up or out.
up or out. And out's okay, especially if it's early, right? And
Yes,
out's even okay, even if it's late, if it's better for that person. Always keep in mind you're doing them a favor by giving them a place they can come to work where they're not scared, they're not afraid, they're not pushing the limits, they're not bothering, no one's bothering them. Like you're also doing it for them. And I often think about what would I want if it were my daughter, my son working in that
yes.
business, what would I want the owner to say to them? Right? That's what I want to say to people. And it's not because I'm all ushy gushy, because that's what's best for my company and that's what's best for them.
Don't leave it unsaid. Uh, you know, I it's funny how you hear things differently, absorb things differently.
That's
I mean,
Chris, that's why you should always read your favorite book from last year again this year, because it will speak to you differently in a year and 5 years from now. Like it'll wrap yourself up. But I mark my favorite book ever. I read about 12 to 15 books a year. I mark my favorite, and then I always want to go back and read it again, like sometime in the next 5 years. I interrupted you, but it made me think of that, and I want to throw it out there.
actually, I think we had a pre-show meeting where we talked that this would to our listeners, this may be a bit of a roller coaster ride
Yes, we
because
can't
we're
keep it in.
we're going to go from topic to topic a little bit here, but in fact, I will take advantage of that moment. I believe that we each have a new favorite book, Colin's new book. This is being recorded in the spring, summer of 26. The reason I know Arnie read that is because he's founder of the Better Book Club, and I'm a paying customer of that book club, and it's one of the unique features of Placers. But I really liked his book. I hope you did as much as I did.
And I'm on my second read, like in a row. Like I decided just to read it twice in a row. And I listen. I'm a listener.
Okay,
I fall asleep when I read, so I have to listen, and I have a lot of opportunities to do that. So I'm on my second pass through now. But some of the stuff in there, and again, it's when the student's ready, the teacher appears,
yes,
and no one knows what we're talking about. But is it Robert Collins? No,
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins. Sorry, Jim Collins. What to Make of a Life is as good of a read as there is that's come out this year, and it's fantastic.
And it's a 15-year study of comparable individuals and the life that they've led, and just the realization that we all have areas of opportunity, challenges called cliffs. We all go through tough times called fog, how we handle it. So it's really a fascinating thing.
Yeah,
That's one digression. We'll put that in the show notes.
yeah.
But for me in studying careers, it meant a lot to put words to something that you experience and can't label.
Yeah.
It's a process all of a sudden that I could follow. But back to this notion of what I'm hearing differently. Leaders embed culture. You've always said that. I heard you on stage, I think, in San Antonio talking about leaders embed culture.
Culture reflects leadership.
Culture,
Whatever culture you have in your company right now is because of your leadership or lack thereof. Culture reflects leadership. And so to create the culture you want, you have to become the leader you need to be. And that's where my talk starts and ends. and the goal is to find a way to get you to that spot.
So I think that's, again, I also we had a nice dialogue about like how many times can you have this talk, and then you realize that well there are new audience members, and it does supercharge you still. If I'm this leader who finds themselves in this new role, take them through some of your favorite thinking about how they should be approaching this topic.
So what leaders tend to do is they try to take they don't take they just take nothing on, and they say we'll worry about culture when we're making money. Like we don't realize that
Yet
a
it's
great
half the
culture,
productivity.
right? That having a great culture leads you to having a great company, leads you to making money. Or they say, I'm so passionate about culture, I'm going to do it all myself. I'm going to be the rah rah guy. I'm going to help people grow. I'm going to. And whenever I hear I'm gonna from a leader, I know it's not going to happen. The key to leading a quality culture in your business is to delegate it out to the team so that it's scalable, so that it is uh, sustainable. Like it's not I heard it at a conference, I'm going to do it for 3 months and then it's going to go away. I heard it at a conference, we're going to implement it in a way that it's here 5 years from now. And so
Is that because it's better process?
yeah, and
It's it
the process is this: everything you decide to do as a leader, most things you decide to do yourself that aren't your core strengths as a leader, those are the things that are not going to happen. So you go, okay, I'm going to assign it to my number two. Well, he or she has other things to do too. The way we got culture accomplished in our companies was to push it down to a champion as low on the org chart as we possibly could. A front desk manager is a great example of that, right? A new graphic design person is a great example of that. Someone new to the office is a great example of that. It gets them involved. It helps them get to know their teammates. It gives them responsibility, and it gives them a chance to show you what they can do. And by God, it gets done. Every culture project needs a champion, it needs a checklist, and it needs your support. And then get out of the way, man. Get out of the way, and it'll happen. So
so
the
if you had
answer
to
to your question is
yeah.
the reason it goes wrong is that leaders try to take it on themselves or assign it to their executive team, and it almost always fails. When it goes right, we get a champion from deeper in the organization. Culture then builds from the bottom up. It's not pushed from the top down. It takes root. And once it takes root, we got a chance.
So I push culture, practiced it, and have a culturally led company. But I have failed to realize that when I have failed, it's for the reasons that you're mentioning, Arnie.
That's
I
right. It gets
get
pushed to the side of the desk.
I take it on myself, and before you know it, it's on to the next races or something.
Champions and checklist and support equals a program that's got a chance. And it doesn't get you got to, every program needs 9 months to really take root. And you only want to start one program a quarter. And so that's the other key is people take on too much too fast. It goes too far. The other problem is that we start a program and we forget about it, right? Maybe we did a perfect delegation. Maybe we gave them a perfect checklist. Maybe, but it leaves it. What's not in front of us, sometimes we forget about. And so the other big thing we did as a company that created success is we named our culture, as
Okay.
famously called camel culture, and we created some artwork around it that said, this is the outline of a camel, because that was the name of our culture. And everything we did unique to us, we wrote the words inside that camel so that it had a place to live. And we put that poster and it's in the book. You can see a picture. The poster is in the lobby of our building. It's in our break room. It's in multiple places. And, we were a lot more in office at the time, but it was everywhere people could see it because it always reminded people that that's our culture. And when someone found something that was written in there that we weren't actually practicing, they could hold us accountable to it. And when we had new things, we could add it and let people find the new stuff there or through their champion. So we got to make these things living, breathing. They can't just be an idea that we had once upon a time. Most leaders think they put 10 things into motion, and they did put them into motion, but typically only 2 or 3 are actually still happening.
Your visualization of the culture, I have found I've met a couple of leaders that were kind of embarrassed by that. And then they had a customer come into the lobby or the break room and see it and ask about it and realize that, what people say, well, we don't have that at our company. Well, we
Yeah.
really need to do more of that at our well, you're the kind of vendor or partner I like to work with because I'd like to have this kind of culture where I work.
We all want to do business where people are happy about doing their jobs. That's your grocery store. That's where you buy furniture. That's any restaurant you go to. If you go to a business and you recognize that the people there enjoy their jobs, you're more likely to enjoy that business. And so as a leader in my company, I want an environment where people enjoy their jobs and show it. I make my people happy, they make our customers happy, and the business goes round and round. And so, but I think about it all the time. If I go into a business and I can tell the team, whoever I'm working with, the airline people, whoever it is, if they're angry, it's not a good culture.
So, summarizing a couple of points, if I'm a new leader, if I don't like my culture, it's get it down into the organization.
Well,
It's
first recognize I'm the leader. It's my culture. This
okay.
is look. I can preach about this because this is what happened to me. I was mad at my team. I was mad at my clients. I was mad at the industry. I was mad at my landlord. I was mad at everybody except the right person, which was me. I was yelling at people, trying to push them towards my goals, as opposed to lead them towards my goals. And so the first thing is realization. I'm the leader. I'm responsible for my culture. It's not about pushing people. It's about leading people.
So, what was your epiphany?
John DeJulius, the guru of customer service, hails
Yes.
from Cleveland, multiple books, great podcast, super human individual when it comes to creating customer service cultures within a company. He was at my conference, my client conference, speaking to my clients.
Your conference.
The conference we put on, I was madder than a hornet because of all the work that went into this. I felt like I was doing everything right. And he's speaking about a culture of customer service. And that's when I first heard the words that culture reflects leadership. And he was talking about it in terms of customer service, but it hit me that those words were true of business. And it hit me that it wasn't my people and it wasn't my clients and it wasn't the industry. It was me. I was pushing and not leading. And so first it's that realization that it's me. And then it's not, as many people will do, try to change everything at once. What can I change today that will make a difference tomorrow? What can I change tomorrow that will make a difference the next day? And whether it's day by day or week by week or quarter by quarter, those small changes, the same way you got into this mess, it's going to take you probably twice as long to get out of it.
And for my audience, I don't care if you're a scaling up or a traction. I hope you have a business planning process and in setting priorities and in thinking about this. One way to make sure that it is a reasonable amount is to follow those processes because they help you keep in check from doing too much of one thing, you know?
That's right. Our priority, like, the famous priority is one thing. We often leave our quarterly plannings with two or three things, and because we can delegate them out and they're assigned, we can get away with it. But we got to do the number one thing, and the number
Yes.
one thing is creating a culture where people want to be, where they understand the vision, where if they're not making fun of you repeating things so often, then you're not repeating it enough. And it's your job number one to create the culture where people enjoy being, so that they can. If you don't care about them, they won't care about you, and that's step one.
I'm not
So
sure
that's
if,
so we name the culture,
yes.
we delegate the responsibilities, we recognize who's responsible for the overall culture, and we slowly march this thing forward. And again, is however bad you are, however long it took you to get there, it'll take you twice as long to get out. But if you don't start now, you'll be even deeper.
There's study after study, small business, big company, Fortune, that, to my opening quote about Drucker and culture eating strategy for breakfast, that, high retention, folks that are in a role a while, that success of high net promoter scores or surveying, that you're going to have a better financial outcome.
Well, you can charge more. That we could charge more. I don't know. Everyone's business is different, but the more our when we the highest when we had high tenure, we could charge high prices, and we
Yes.
could raise our prices because our tenure allowed us to. Our tenure gave us the expertise to be able to raise our prices, increase our margins, and thus increase our profits. I think it's true of so many businesses. If you're in a commodity business, you got to find a way not to be a commodity, right? That's number one. But as long as you're not in a pure commodity business, the differentiation is your people. And the only reason that they can be different than your competitor is if you're a great leader and can lead them towards being different and better. And so that's how we created margin.
Why do you think this is so darn hard?
It's so darn hard because we are we get super focused as can do type one type A personalities about getting something done, that we ignore the people that are trying to help us get it done, and we trade that off for just getting it done, and we don't realize the wake that we leave and the issues that we run into. um and so we just want it done. Like the opportunity is to step back and say, I want this done today. It's got to be scalable and it's got to be sustainable. How do I get that done over a long period of time? And no one can do it alone.
Arnie, I'm curious, how much of this is of your message is intended for the founder versus the executive management team? Because I think it fits equally, but it feels very founder
I,
specific
I, I
in
speak
my
to
head.
founders because that's my experience, right? We
Yeah,
often teach and preach about the things we need to learn most as a founder. And what I need to
yeah.
learn most is how to be a better leader. And that's what I teach and preach about. But this comes into effect even if you're a leader within a company and your boss or the person you report to isn't doing the things they need to do for you. You doing it for others sets the tone for your division, your department, everyone below you. Let me give you an example. Huddles are a common point of many businesses, right? We do some daily huddles, weekly huddles.
Weekly town
Huddles a big deal.
halls. Yes.
I don't know how companies operate without huddles, but it's like they don't, people that
You know
don't
when
know
it
how
did
people do.
you know when it did work is when I had 2 cubicles and we all gathered around the cubicle,
Well, you
and I
huddled.
didn't realize it was a huddle,
Yes.
you
So
know?
what I've found, and I've gotten into coaching companies on their huddles lately, is that if I can get 2 or 3 people to show up and huddle correctly, then I can get 4 or 5 people to show up and huddle correctly. And if I can get 4 or 5, I can get 8 or 10. And if I can get 8 or 10, I can get the whole huddle at an A to A, A to A plus, where before it was a D. It takes time. Be the leader, be the human being, be the person, be the culture example, be who you want your company to be, and you have a better chance of getting there. It's true in huddle, and I believe over a long term, it's true in companies.
Arnie, I am a fellow huddle snob and would love to hear you talk about what needs to be well done in the huddle. That would be a fine diversion because we got a whole army of leaders that are like, why do I do a huddle? And my huddles never go well.
Well, we got it. It's a great place to change the entire outlook of a company and everyone that attends huddle, right? Because if everyone attending huddle is thinking, I wish I wasn't attending huddle, then it's going to be a bad huddle, right? That what I want is everyone attending huddle to say, huddle is a part of my productivity today in this company. It helps me be a better person, helps my team be a better team, and I'm looking forward to it, right? I miss them only occasionally. I'm not paying attention only in the most extreme circumstances. And so it all starts with, do I have your attention? And, huddles used to be all in person, and now there's some combination of AV and in person and stuff. But the first is, are you present? Are you engaged? Are you listening to what others say? Or are you thinking about what you're going to say? I can go on and on.
Well, it's the Ken Blanchard 1-minute manager. If you're a really great leader, you have a whole hour's worth of work you can do if you really listen to huddle.
It's
If you so choose.
amazing.
Yes.
But if everyone shows up at huddle and their cameras are off and their brains are off and they're just there to say what you've programmed them to say and they're not listening to anyone else, then you don't need to be doing it. You are wasting
Yep.
time. And so it's about, like a common example is, tell me what for some huddles, one of the questions is, what are you doing today? And an easy answer is calls and meetings. I'm doing calls and meetings today, right? It's a completely waste of time, useless information.
How about some specificity, Arnie?
I've got calls with Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Smith. This afternoon, I'm doing lunch with Tom Jerkins. He's one of our large. Like, it's just, here's what I'm doing now. As I hear these names and I have other relationships with those people, I can tie in opportunities, right? It's a silly example. It doesn't apply to all companies, but I guarantee you that if I can engage, if I can get specificity in everyone's reporting, I'll get a better huddle.
Arnie, you're right, because marketing's listening to hear if that appointment's scheduled. The CFO is waiting to see if the deal is going to close. The COO is waiting for a resource meeting to figure out if they need to hire someone to do the work. The admin is wondering if the phone's going to ring more. Everybody needs to know.
It's kind of like going to Amazon.com and they show you the 3 things or 5 things that you didn't even know you needed, but now you realize you need. And it's the same thing on a huddle. You
That's
didn't
exact
show up knowing that you needed to know about Mrs. Jones, but now that you're mentioning Mrs. Jones, you've got some paperwork for her to sign. And couldn't we all take care of that at once? So it's an amazing process. Again, let me stress, doesn't change overnight. However bad it is, however long it took you to get there, it'll take you twice as long to get out. But it starts with 1 or 2 people showing up at huddle with the right attitude and the right spiel to get everyone else thinking about what huddle could be.
How do you feel about recognition on a huddle?
Well, here's
Speaking of
uh,
culture and leadership and
you,
values and all that stuff.
it's I don't if you're huddling daily, like some
Yep.
people huddle once a week, 3 times a week, 5 days a week. So if you're huddling daily, basically, let me break it down. It's 1 recognition per huddle. It can't be a ice cream cones for everybody all the time.
Yep.
And so here's another example. Is that I recently was on a huddle, and they would say, "Does anybody have a nomination for who rocks today?" We used to rock people all the time. Like it's a long. Basically, it goes like this: is that Chris, I really appreciate the work you did for the Smith account. You went the extra mile on this and this, and for that you rock. Everyone, Chris rocks on 3, 1, 2, 3, and everyone says
You
Chris
rock.
rocks. Works great in person, does not work over Zoom, right?
Interesting.
It gets all muddled up and everything, and so we have to change that, right? We have to say what we do now is we say, do we have recognitions for folks that rocked, since our last huddle, and anyone can throw out a recognition, and it's just great to hear that Susie did something great or Bobby did something great. You usually get 2 to 4 per huddle. It's that fast. I just want to recognize Susie. We had the client luncheon the other day. She did a great job. There were no issues. She worked her tail off. Super great job. Great. Anybody else? This person did this and this. Great. Anything else? This person did this and this. I want to make sure everybody knows. Great. All right. That wraps up huddle. Let's go. Like, those 3 people got to hear themselves recognized, and the people that recognize them feel good about it. And everyone knows that when you do good stuff, you get recognized. And so that's how we end huddle now. Instead of picking out one person that rocks and fumbling over it over Zoom, we let everyone talk about the folks that made a difference for them, and everyone goes home happy.
So a quick story and then a question. I remember, reading Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. I think it came out in '01. I have no idea when we ran our first huddle. It was about the time, I'd say mid 2000s. And my highest performing, highest billing employee kept refusing to come to huddle. Thought it was the silliest thing in the world. Would always schedule a client meeting then. Could be a dentist, could be anything. But she was by far my highest biller. Clients loved her. And although it took a while, ultimately we parted ways over her saying that my huddle was silly. And, I guess you have to stand for culture. She was not wrong. She was a great performer and she had a terrific career. Just it couldn't be at my place of business any longer.
I understand.
And it just, I guess, it wasn't like it's not about the drama of it's not a TV show where you fire somebody over that live, but it was a very hard leadership dialogue to
Yeah.
explain to her that it was important to the business.
Yeah. I don't know if that's if you have a specific question, but I can talk to the general story.
Yes.
First, it's the 4 quadrants. It's, doing great, acting great, easy, easy, easy. Doing poorly, acting poorly, easy, easy, easy. Those, keep the lead. That's right. Then it's doing great, doing poorly, acting great, right? We train, move them up and to the right, move them up and to the right. And then there's doing great, acting poorly. And those are the hardest ones to deal with, right? Because those are the painful ones where you got to let people go. The question is, as a leader, have you given them every opportunity to get up and to the right? And in this case, in your case, it's what would make huddle valuable to you, and then you as a leader deciding if those things are reasonable, how do you incorporate it? Maybe they make huddle better for everybody. But as a leader, if you can't get an answer, or if the answers don't align with your values, then the only answer is to let that person find success somewhere else. That's the only answer. In where
Yes.
culture is number 1. If culture is not number 1, and it's all about performance, I think you will have a successful but short-lived company. And what we wanted was, overnight, 20 years of overnight success. We wanted the longevity, not the short term. And so I think The only criticism I would have of you, Chris, is that rather than being a slow death, faster death may have been better for everyone.
Well, this is for all the founders that are paying their bills on the back of their superstar who fits that category, but is, that's ultimately you have to decide if you're going to eat dog food again, right? And I
Yeah.
made that decision. Uh, we'll wrap with Huddle with one question. I coach people, you coach people. One of the things that's hardest, even with modeling, is getting people to talk about stucks and problems. As a Huddle master, thoughts around that? I know
Well,
it takes time. That's
yeah.
my experience.
Stucks and hurdles come after I'm hearing things that help me. If I'm not hearing things that help, if I show up at huddle to talk and not listen, then I can't even get close because no one's listening to the stucks and issues, right? So if I'm just reporting and no one's listening, then it doesn't matter. The first step is giving people a reason to listen, right? So we give people a reason to listen is by giving them information that means something, right? And so by giving information that means something and giving them a reason to listen, now we can work towards stucks and hurdles that we need to get through. Now I know if I say something, people are going to hear me, and then I can take that conversation offline. I can get with someone later on something. I can hear it, and I start listening for things I can help with. Right? Maybe someone doesn't reflect it as a stuck, but maybe I hear someone and I recognize it as a stuck. I recognize that I can help them with that, and I say, "Hey, Chris, I've got some comments on what you just said. I'm going to hit you right after huddle."
That's a really strong leadership point that we were referencing. If you're not fully in that huddle, you might miss that.
You miss it. You can't. And here's the other part is that where leaders get huddle wrong. The leaders have to be in huddle. If you think you can start huddle and then not show up for 6 weeks and then come back and huddle's, if this is true of everything. If it's not important to the leaders, it's not going to be important to the team. And so leaders have to be on huddle.
And guys,
So if
this
you're
is a
too important
yeah,
to attend huddle, you're not a good leader.
and this is a size business where you can have relatively everybody in the huddle, and some people have departments that huddle and then roll up to executives, and that's all
Yeah.
fine. And it's just,
Well,
but
those
yes,
in that case, like the CEO of a 200-person company is not going to be in the bottom huddles, but the leaders of that team will be in the huddle, and then those leaders will go to the next huddle, and their leaders will be there, and it'll stair step up. But the leaders of the group so the 25-person sort of work group, if you will, 12 to 25, if they're not there, then the team won't be there, and they may show up physically, but mentally they're not going to be there.
Arnie, people aren't going to believe that you and I don't hang out every day, but I do believe and have said many times as a coach that all of this stuff starts with huddle. And it's communication and it's leadership and it's problem solving and it speeds things up and feels good and it's recognition. So
Yeah,
I think that with time,
it's a chance to repeat the values, to recognize people in accordance with your values, to talk about their purpose and why it's important to everyone, to just through body language and eye contact recognize people for showing up. And this is true again in person and via Zoom. We have to recognize people for showing up.
so believe it or not, we're following a path. We are following a path. And if we kind of, I don't think we need to rewind it all, but I'd like to think that where do you want to go post huddle for a leader who's thinking culture?
So where we what the one of the okay, so name your culture, designate your champions, make sure programs stay alive through checklist and support, and then communicate to your people, right? those are
Okay.
those are big items that a leader is responsible for. Here's the one a lot of them forget. It's easy to put in downstream communication. These are our values, this is our purpose, these are our goals. Congratulations on doing this. Congratulations on doing that. You're great. You're great. We're great. Rah, rah, rah. Let's go get them team. Right. That's all that stuff is part of the suit of leadership we wear. Here's the one we miss: listening. And listening comes in many forms. There's got to be a path, a sustainable and a scalable path for upstream communication. It has to be. Think of it in its most basic generic terms as the suggestion box, right? Put some technology behind that and create an opportunity for people to tell you the truth about your business and be willing to listen to that truth and not be defensive about that truth. We did it through a team survey every month that says, how do we become the best run culture on earth, right? Tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong, and we listen without defensiveness. There's many other ways to do it. In my call center, I would walk into the call center. Of course, when I walk in as the founder, president, everyone's perfect. I would sneak in and just sit and listen. I would sit and listen to the overnight shift. I would sit and listen to the weekend shift. I would sit and listen to the really busy periods and watch how the team was reacting once they didn't really see me anymore. Listen to your people. We set up dinners to talk to our frontline people. No one knows more about what's going on in your company than your frontline people. Listen to them. Get them talking to you. Not they tell you something and you swing a hammer. They tell you something and you realize there's something that needs to change far upstream so that they don't experience that again. Listen, listen, listen. Find ways through surveys, through active listening, through observation to understand what your people, what the obstacles they're running into, because your job as a leader is to remove them.
Some people that use the methodology of a stop, start, continue. I know that's a bit more leadership and strategy and business plan. You ever use that at all as your fact finding in this
Yeah,
constantly looking for information?
any series of questions you can ask where the question is short and the response is open-ended.
And the response is anonymous.
Well, that's up to the leader. We
That's a
had
good point.
programs that were anonymous. We had programs that were not anonymous. You
Yeah, it's an
have
assumption I made. I actually think the anonymity creates lots of challenges because it's hard to go get enough information sometimes to really solve something without a team that is willing to talk about it.
So the way you solve for anonymity is you publish the information. So if you get a comment that's anonymous and it bothers you and you want to do something about it, then you go expose that. You tell, I'm
Uh,
hearing this. What are you hearing? You got
Understood.
to go investigate. You got to go find out if it's true or not. It just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not true,
Oh,
right? But
right.
we
Right.
have to
No,
go investigate, is it true? And so what we would do is we had an anonymous monthly survey and people would write things and we would publish back everything they wrote so that others could tell us if it's true or not. Now this I go on the book, I talk about how we did it and all the steps. I don't want to get into it now, but there's got to be a system. My point is this: it's not just you being fired up about it for one day. It's something that repeats itself every quarter. I would go sit in the call center, right? For a 20, not 20 consecutive hours, but for 20 hours a quarter, I would go sit in there and listen. We would do dinners with our shift managers so that we could get them to talk to us about the problems they're seeing with their people, with our clients, with the technology. But we did it once a month. It was programmed in. We had a monthly survey where we talked to everybody. I didn't do the survey. I just made sure we weren't defensive about the survey. And so there's all these things we
you
can
made it
do.
automatic.
Made it automatic so that it's
That's the key,
sustainable and it's scalable. If it's not, you're excited about it today and you forgot about it tomorrow.
is for sure.
These are the things. And there's, we could spend an hour on any one of those things and get into the how to. I'll offer you, don't just read my book, read a lot of books. Like if you want to be great at something, read 10 books about it. You'll know more about it than 98% of the people on earth. Find the podcast about it. Find other people you respect to talk to about it, but
And
don't just do nothing,
and
right?
that's no BS response. He's the godfather of the book club, for goodness sake.
That's right.
Um, it's I know it's a digression, but how did that come about? Because I think it's just entrepreneurial genius or just a wonderful thing you did.
It came about because just like every one of you listening, I read a book and then told 20 of my team they should read the book. And they said, I'm not reading your stinking book. They made it.
Yeah, that was not deleted by me, by the way. That was
Yeah.
just yeah, I get it. I'm not reading your book because you're the boss and
Because
because you told me to read the book.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And so so I was all this. I love this book. You got to read this book. And like, yeah, whatever. So some people would tell you whatever. Some people would tell you they're going to read it, but they never do. Some people would read it, but it didn't matter because they weren't really absorbing it. And so the key is, how do I get people to choose to read? And so the concept was, look, I don't care what you read, because a great book to you is an okay book to me and vice versa. Just read. And if you read, I'm going to reward it. And I'm rewarding you not because I'm trying to buy this you off. I'm rewarding you so that I can help you create the habit. Because if you enjoy, once you establish the habit of reading, it changes your life and potentially and probably changes the life of your family and your kids and your offspring and their offspring, because all the secrets are in the books. You just don't know it yet, but they're all in there. And so just to start that habit, and I say all this, Chris, to say, and I know we're getting close on time here, is to
Yeah.
say one of the we've employed over 25 years and 4 different companies. We employed thousands of people over that time. Some with very short tenures, some with very long tenures. Some of the people that I hired are still working for the company that I sold now 8 years ago, right? They're still there. The point is there's thousands of people. My biggest points of pride living in Nashville, Tennessee is when I'm on the street and someone recognizes me as someone they used to work for, and they come up and they say, "Thank you for a great experience." Those are really, those are prideful moments. But some of my most feared moments are the ones where I wasn't a great leader, where I didn't listen to them, where I didn't give them the chance to be successful. And they're still bitter about it or mad about it. And they deserve to be, because I was wrong. And so I want to coach leaders forward to say that no matter how old you are, when you sell your company, if you sell your company, wherever you go through life, that people recognize you as someone that helps them become better, and they don't recognize you as someone who held them down.
So, Arnie, it's very refreshing to have you speak from a place of vulnerability about where you feel that you failed or could do better. The whole point of Outside Insights is about closing personal and professional gaps. I believe for the leaders that are listening or would be leaders that are listening, you can really only learn by doing and experiencing what you've experienced. Now, you can also learn through books. What does Ryan Holiday say? How can you speak to the dead? The way to speak to the dead is through books. I do believe and have seen it where my teams grow when they realize that the words of one book connect to the next book. And before you know it, thinking and reading becomes true knowledge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If smart men learn from their mistakes, really smart people learn from the mistakes of others, and those are in the
Oh,
books as well, right? And so it's pain creates lessons learned. Pain and extreme joy can create lessons learned. But the reason we become stronger and wiser, as most of us as we get older, it's all about pattern recognition. We get better and better at what we do because we recognize the patterns faster and faster, right? And so books lay a foundation for all that pattern recognition, and it has served me well. It served anyone that's a reader. uh they're passionate about it, and the only people that aren't passionate about it are those that don't read, and all we can do is coach them up.
so I think it would be the definition of insanity not to ask you for leadership book recommendations, culture book recommendations, and frankly, just your favorite books. We'll put them in show notes. And if none of that resonates, answer it any way you want, Arnie. You
Well,
know,
when people ask me all the time to recommend a book, and it comes down, what do you want to learn? Like it
ah,
doesn't. If I recommend a book about hiring and you want to learn about running better meetings, the who is the greatest book on hiring I've ever read. Death by Meeting is the greatest book about meetings that I've ever read. It changed how I ran my business, my meetings, hired my people. But if you're looking for one and you get the other, it's a bad book.
by the way,
And
both
so
books are within 3 feet of me right
that's
now. So it's a
right.
good game to play.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're classics. I mean, and then you got the E Myth and Great by Choice, and so many classics. Upstream is one of my favorites, but I could go on and on. The question is, what do you want to learn? And we can give you a top 5 on those. And by the way, even if I give you my top 5, there's probably a book coming out tomorrow that's better. And so once you get into that journey, once you start, going down that trail, books will find you. Right when the student is ready,
yeah.
the teacher will come, and often that teacher is a book.
And I'm just going to share what my all-time favorite leadership book, just as a primer, is The Leadership Challenge by Posner. It's on like its 6th or 7th or 8th revision at this point. It's research-based, but it's those 6 or 7 chapters that I cut my teeth on leadership. So anytime I get a chance, I want to throw that one out as something there. So I guess there's 2 other things. I know you're up to new and different stuff all the time. I don't know if you want to chat about that, but I do want to ask you. I always like to end with advice you would give your 21-year-old self.
Mm.
And yeah, I'd change it sometimes if there's a meaningful event, but I think 21 is good for you. If you think back about, my gosh, what an interesting career, all the things you've built, all the lessons you've learned. What advice would you give young Arnie?
I think that some of the times I'm most when there's moments when my memory serves up a memory, a
Yes.
thing, right? And often I'll be very prideful of that. Like I talked about meeting a team member who really they helped find they grew through our organization. But often I cringe at some of the things I've said or done. Sometimes my pride got so in the way of doing a better being a better person, things like that. But I guess shorten the answer, sorry, is just lose some of the hubris, right? Just let life. Don't be so damn stubborn that you can't learn from nearly everything around you, and so just learn. I'll tell you this: the first time I had to speak to more than 10 people in a room, I felt like my heart was pounding so hard that it would be impossible for the people in the next room not to hear it. That's how nervous I was. And it was only through that pain, through that craziness, that I now can speak to a room of any size, right? That I can, it
Gosh, I
doesn't,
think there was 3,000 when I heard you speak.
it,
So
it doesn't
yeah,
matter. Like it doesn't matter anymore. But you can't get there without going through some level of discomfort. We can't become better leaders by just taking the comfortable path. We can't do it through the easy button, right? It involves us wanting to get somewhere so bad that we're willing to endure some of that discomfort. And as our friend, Andy Bailey will say, get comfortable with discomfort so that you can get where you need to be. And so those are the two things: is lose some of the pride and get more comfortable with discomfort.
my mentor always says, I think it's part of what's implied is to practice grace, forgive yourself, forgive others, to realize that these things are not that important. Just learn from them and move forward. Arnie, it was a bucket load of fun. It's great to have you. And I have a little bit of a streak going. Not that you need this, but a lot of guests that have been on the show recently have been tapped to talk about their topic. So it's, if something like that happens, you got to let me know. It's not the sole purpose, but certainly when it's good content and people are trying to get culture right, they can learn from this podcast. And if they're interested in you, how do they find you?
Worthdoingwrong.com. I'm easy to reach. I'm easy to find. The challenge is coming up with the time to spend, one-on-one and talking
Yes.
through where people want to go and what's keeping them from getting there. I've My wife and I bought a farm about an hour from my home, and we now have a home there, and so we're spending more and more time there. We grow lavender. We have a young dog we run around a lot with. We're just out there having a lot of fun, and so sometimes I'll sacrifice a consultation or two for a day on the farm. And I say that with both pride and humbleness to say, if you've ever seen Clarkson's Farm
Oh,
on
yeah.
Netflix, then you know the experience I'm having, because I have no idea what I'm doing out there, but we're having fun.
I was gonna break midstream there and ask you about supply chain issues on a lavender farm, but I
Yeah.
didn't do that to you. No, I think I like to think and talk about the earned life, the journey of it, and this is the path, and this is next. And actually, it sounds pretty cool to me. But Arnie, you've given the gift of your ideas and your experiences, and you've been very open and honest about the lessons that you've learned. Thank you for sharing all this with Outside Insights audience today.
Chris, thanks for having me. It's always energizing to get on and talk about a topic that we're both passionate about. And if just one thing we said makes a difference, makes you uncomfortable enough to make a change towards where you want to be or affirms where you're going, then we've both done a great job, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening.